I thank you, Wayne residents and business people, for attending tonight. It's a great opportunity to share with you a little bit about ripple effect. I want to take you back a little bit to October of 2010. I was invited to a meeting held at Rex's, which is going to be torn down, of course, now, but it was a group of about 50 people that evening. And I thought, why am I here? I do business in this town, but why am I here? Another thing to volunteer for? So the people who were instrumental in bringing that meeting together, I want to thank them. The Main Street people from the state of Michigan, MISTA, came and gave a presentation, a slideshow. And as they were going through their slides, they came to some slides and showing us the before and after of Howell, Michigan. Being a realtor and have been in Howell quite a bit selling houses, but also I have a son who moved there around 10 years ago. And I'll tell you, in that time, in those 8-year period, I saw a transformation in Howell. I had no idea what made that happen. I thought it was city government that was behind that. And until I came to the Main Street presentation that evening 8 years ago, I realized that it was concerned citizens who worked together with the government of that community and made Howell what it is today. Howell has probably no vacancies in their downtown. It's a very thriving community. It's a place that we would like our Wayne to be. So that is a dream that I saw that night, and I think a lot of us saw that dream, but it can happen here in Wayne. What have we been doing since 2010, October? These are a few things. These were on the PowerPoint, which you probably maybe saw or didn't see, but I want to share those with you. In 2010, we did Hops and Snops on February. That's the February after the October that we had that meeting, where we had a beer and martini tasting party. In the spring, we did a downtown cleanup in April. In May, we worked and planted flowers and worked with the community people planting flowers in our downtown. That year, we didn't only plant them, but we maintained them and we watered them. Then in June, we worked with Kurt Kuban doing the Rouge Rescue to clean up the environment on the river. Then in July, we helped host the Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Midnight Release Party. Then during the summer, we had a booth at the farmer's market. Then in October, we did the scarecrows for the very first time, where we had people who volunteered, paid money to get their frame, made their scarecrows, and you all saw that really nice display. Then in November, the Wayne Rotary Club hosts a holiday parade, and we took part in that also. Then in November, we also took part in the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn #2 midnight party at the Wayne Theater. So we were pretty busy in 2010, trying to stir up activity in our community to show people that it is fun to be in our downtown. Then it came to 2012. That was our best celebration. We had a celebration called Raise Your Glass because we were chosen by the Main Street to be an associate level community, which is an entry level community. We were the only city in southeastern Michigan that was chosen for that opportunity. We put a lot of hard work. That whole year before was things we had to document in order to be an entry level. In the spring, we did the downtown cleanup once again of the downtown area. In July, we participated in the longest garage sale, which runs from downtown Detroit, Michigan Avenue to Michigan Avenue in Chicago, and we were part of that. This year, we did do a booth in the farmer's market, but we also had an ice cream booth, which we gave away, yes, free ice cream to anybody who came to our booth. October, we did our second annual Scarecrow, and that was even a bigger success. We had over 75 scarecrows this year. We were now down Wayne Road also. So you can see here tonight that we have been an active group, and we need more activity, and we want to become to the next level so we can revitalize our downtown. And I hope that you will enjoy the rest of this presentation. our members who would like to do an introduction.
Thank you, Pat. Good evening. I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker tonight, Brittany Hoskew from Michigan State Housing Development Authority, Main Street. I have her bio here, and I was going to read it off and everything because she's a graduate of Michigan State University. She's acted as... Okay.
I saw that. Hey there.
She's taken part. She's been a Main Street manager. She's been a volunteer. She's done a lot of things. Then I met with Brittany this morning and spent the day with her and found out she has a passion for what we're trying to do here and what she's accomplished in other cities that can't be put on paper. I had the best day that I've had in a long, long time just listening to her. She has inspired me to do more than I have done in the past. I want to have the ripple effect, have Main Street be a success here in the city of Wayne, because it's just something that we need to do. And when I saw what she's accomplished through volunteerism in other cities, there's no reason why we can't have it here. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Brittany Hoskew. Brittany,
Thank you very much. That was very sweet of you. Hello. Well, after all that, I don't know what else I have to say. That pretty much covers it, right? Thank you, Merle. My name is Brittany Hoskew. I'm the organization specialist for the Michigan Main Street Center at MISTA. But really, that kind of comes out of my mouth kind of uncomfortably. Because for the past 10 years, I've been a volunteer or a Main Street manager in communities, different communities throughout the state. And so I come to you not as someone from the state, really though I am, we'll keep that quiet though, but as someone who truly believes in this program. So I do this presentation a lot. And I mean a lot. I probably do this presentation once a week to communities all over the place, in the most unusual places. Like, you never know where I'm going to go or who I'm going to talk to and where they may stick me to do this presentation. But I have to say, this is the first time that I have been on the pulpit preaching Main Street to a group of folks. That is the first time, I will tell you that. And my mother, if she could see me right now, someone take a picture and send this to my mom. This better give me brownie points. That's all I have to say. So I've had the pleasure to spend today in Wayne the whole day. We got here about 10 o'clock this morning. We had breakfast. We met with folks. And like I said before, I do this a lot. And I meet with a lot of communities that want to become Main Street communities. And there's a lot of things that we look for in a successful Main Street community. But one of the big things is community participation. And if the participation out of this group is anything like the participation of the folks in blue that I've had the pleasure of spending today with, you guys will be a select level community in a very, very short time. Thoroughly enjoyed my day. It was astonishing. I work with a lot of Main Street programs at all levels. People who are, you know, kicking tires and thinking about it, all the way up to community that's been doing Main Street for 15 years. And to see a community that's unincorporated, that's working on their 501c3 status, that has been able to do the work that they've done is thoroughly impressive. And so I hope that the work that this room can accomplish alongside them is, I have no idea what's in store, but I'm sure it's good. Okay? So we're going to hope that this works. Oh, it does. Okay, we're in business. And I'm going to warn you right now, I'm a wanderer a little bit when I do these presentations. So a lot of times when we talk about the importance of downtown, we talk about the fluffy stuff. I call it the fluffy stuff. So it's the center of arts and culture. It's the lifeblood of your community. It's you know, where the center of commerce. It's the identity of your community. Those are all very important things. Don't get me wrong. But let's talk about the reality of it. The downtown, no matter how much disinvestment has happened in your community over the course of 50 years in urban renewal, I'm sorry, all that stuff, it still is the highest concentration in most communities in the United States, and I don't know this is a fact for Wayne. We'll have to consult the economic development director back there. But in most communities, despite years of disinvestment, remains the highest concentration of property values, tax base, and jobs. That is the reason why you fight for downtown. Cities, villages, municipalities were built on a concentration of tax base coming from your downtown. That's how things work. That their residents, that everything is focused in the downtown and expands from there. And so we need, for a strong city, for a strong community, we need a strong downtown. The other stuff, the fluffy stuff that I called it, the talent retention, the arts and culture, the nice flowers and the streetscapes and the fun stuff like that, that's all the gravy. So that's why this is important. And I hear that a lot. Well, why do we care about downtown? Why don't we care about Wayne as a whole? We do. But we know for Wayne as a whole to be successful, we need to focus on downtowns. So after World War II, the American dream changed drastically. It went from having a good job, a good paying job in a factory and a nice home out in the burbs. It went from having a business on Main Street and living upstairs and being part of a larger community to having a good job and a house in the burbs and driving everywhere. And so when we talk about what has been the death of downtowns, people like to point the finger at big box stores. Well, you know, that Meijer had to, or Walmart, oh, if I haven't been to half a dozen communities that have blamed Walmart. Not a fan either. But they're answering a lifestyle, they're a business answering a need that consumers asked for. Can't blame them. Can't blame them for that. So what happened, and communities followed suit by really kind of rolling out the red carpet for this disinvestment in their downtowns. Utilities, streets, all these things that spread out across the land, making it easier for you to move out and disinvest in your community, therefore disinvesting tax base. Downtowns did a lot of hokey stuff to try and compete. One community we work with, Niles, Michigan, they're one of our Main Street communities, Niles is, and a lot of communities were covering up their downtowns with, I call it barn siding. I'm from Rives Junction, Michigan, so in Rives Junction we call it barn siding. It's T111's like aluminum siding, right? It's terrible, it's god-awful stuff. So they were selling this stuff. Well, the company that makes it, Conair, was located in Niles, Michigan. They covered the whole downtown. They were the poster child for this barn siding. It's great stuff, right? Well, when Niles came in the Main Street program, that's the first thing we did. We took that down right away. We had to take care of that first and foremost. So downtowns did a lot of really crazy stuff. Muskegon put a roof on their downtown because they thought if people got to be indoors, like in the malls, then people would shop there. Not addressing what the businesses were selling. Is the stuff even worthwhile buying? Is that the question? Or should we just put a roof on it and then it makes it better? A lot of really crazy things that have happened to downtowns to try and compete. Fortunately, that pendulum has swung. So when I talked about the American dream, when the state of Michigan, interviews young professionals or folks that are talent for the community that we're trying to retain in the community, we hear about downtown living, arts and culture, public infrastructure. We hear about transportation, green initiatives, and being involved in community. That talent base the pendulum has swung. They no longer want to be out in the burbs. Young people, they didn't grow up in churches. They didn't grow up with public service. They grew up, with MTV and a bowl of SpaghettiOs after school. They're the first generation of latchkey kids. They're starved for community. And so fortunately, the pendulum has swung in the other direction to where now the people are looking for that sense of place. They're looking for that downtown experience. And so now the joke's on them. And what's happened, the really funny part is now malls know that you want to spend your dollar and know that it's going somewhere. You want a sense of knowledge of where your dollar's going. And so now they're making their Meijer and their malls look like little downtowns. Now isn't that funny? Isn't that some irony? But we're very fortunate that in downtown Wayne you have the real thing. You don't have to manufacture anything. All we have to do now is support what we have. So I could claim that MSHDA came up with the Main Street approach, but I'd be lying through my teeth because we're clearly did not come up with it. We were clearly not that clever. But the National Trust for Historic Preservation in the late 70s was spending a lot of money at trying to keep historic buildings upright. So they were saying, Mr. Joe Schmo, you own a historically significant building. Here is a grant money to keep it upright. Does that sound very sustainable? Didn't last very long. The problem is that if there isn't a business in the building paying the rent, then that property owner is never going to be able to maintain whatever investment the National Trust just made. And if there isn't customers coming to the business, spending money at the business, then the business is never going to be able to pay rent, and therefore the property owner is never going to be able to maintain the investment. So there's just a cyclical mess going on. So the only people poorer than Main Street programs is historic preservation groups. I know that. And they had to come up with a way of how do we address the largest amount of historic buildings in a comprehensive way with no money. And what they came up with was the Main Street comprehensive approach to community development. Well, the funny thing is in the late 70s, early 80s, they start doing this historic preservation work in these communities and tracking private investment and public investment and all these numbers that you would track to show that you're effective. And all of a sudden, municipalities start paying attention. All of a sudden, Chamber of Commerce start paying attention because they're real numbers. You can be a die-hard preservationist, but at the end of the day, a buck's a buck. And they were seeing dollars being invested in these Main Street communities. So what is Main Street? It's a grassroots, community, and volunteer-driven strategy encouraging economic development through historic preservation. So what they were able to do with their very small pot of money and their very big volunteer base was exponentially increase the impact that that small pot of money was able to make with the talents of each one of the volunteers that participated. So each one of you has some sort of talent. It may be knitting, you may be a great AV guy and get all this stuff up and going for us. You may be a pastor, you may be an economic development director. There's all sorts of things that you guys bring to the table that is an investment in your community. And so if you leverage that against the small pot of money that these historic preservation organizations or Main Street organizations had in their coffers, there was a huge amount that was returned back to the community. So that's what we're trying to do in all the communities that we work in the state of Michigan and across the country. So the Main Street program abides by 8 basic principles, and it's really the easiest way to kind of explain what Main Street is. First and foremost, it's comprehensive. So just like I said earlier, you know, it's not about historic preservation or just about business or just about festivals. You know, I go to a lot of communities and I drive around and I come just like I did today and I say, well, let's, you know, take a tour and show me your downtown, show me what you got, you know. Do a little economic restructure of my own, spend a little money at some businesses, see the neighborhood. And you would be surprised at how many parking lots they show me. Well, we just did this new parking lot and we just did, and those are all important things. You need parking lots for downtowns and you need sidewalks for downtowns. But a community, a downtown, needs more than just infrastructure. It needs strong businesses, and it needs festivals and events, and it needs volunteers and community members and resources to maintain all of those things. And so what we do is try and take all the great programming that's already happening in infrastructure and buildings and business recruitment retention and try and get it in the same page and in a comprehensive fashion so that everybody's rowing in the same direction. Make sense? Second, it's incremental. It took 50 years to get in this mess. It's going to take 50 years to get out. I'm sorry. It's just the truth of it. It took a long time for the community to get in the situation, any community, and this is not a Wayne thing, any community to get in the situation where they need to refocus their efforts on the downtown. And it's baby steps to get back out. The priority is having a vision for that community and taking the steps forward to get there. I worked in one community, and all my stories, the communities will remain nameless, where the community had purchased several city blocks of their downtown. And I said, well, that's odd, you know, you have all these city blocks that are vacant, what's going on here? And they said, well, we're putting all the parcels together so that when the developer comes, we'll have it all ready for them. The developer that was going to buy up 4 city blocks. And I have been a Main Street manager in 3 communities, and I've worked with 40 communities over the past year that I've been at the Michigan Main Street Center, and I have never seen a developer buy up 4 city blocks. I haven't. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but it's incremental. What I have seen in a lot of communities is one really attractive business who really puts their nose to the grindstone and really sees a vision for their downtown, and they're over here. And then there's another business over here that's kind of doing a pretty good thing, and they're kind of open-minded, and then those guys get talking, and then they get their buddy over here, and they say, okay, well now we've got kind of something going on. Maybe we can circulate some traffic around here. And then people start walking around, and, well, maybe we do an event, and we do some cleanup and stuff like that, and then it incrementally gets better. This is self-help. I used to be a Main Street manager, and a Main Street manager is the person who runs the Main Street program. The board, the community is steering the ship. The manager is just trying to keep it all together. It's basically a juggler. That's what I did for a living, juggler. And I would have a lot of people come to me, and I had an open door, you know, people come and go, and I had a couch in my office. If you ever want to get any work done, don't have a couch in your office, because every yahoo in the neighborhood came in, sat right there on the couch, and they said, you know what they should do? They. You are the they. No one's going to fix it for you. You are the they. I had a community who came to Old Town when I was the manager there, and they were looking at the banners, and they were like, those are really nice banners. How did you do that? I said, well, I got a ladder. That's how I did that. Now, clearly, I called the city and got the proper approvals. Clearly, it was all kosher at the time. So this is self-help. This is a public-private partnership, and I had the pleasure of spending, I'm sorry, I keep hitting this poor microphone. I had the pleasure of sitting down with the mayor and the city manager today and talking about their vision for downtown Wayne and the Wayne Ripple Effect and the work that Wayne Ripple Effect has done over the past several years, and it is clear there's support there. There's a public-private partnership there. And so it's how you utilize that public-private partnership to benefit the greater community. So I go to communities, like I said, I do this a lot, and when I come into communities, sometimes, and this is not a reflection on Wayne at all, but sometimes I come in and I meet with the business community, and I go door to door, and I'm saying, you know, so how's business, how are things going, and what do you think? And they say, well, you know, that city, you know, my business would be better if the city did X, Y, Z. Okay. So then I go and I meet with the city and I say, okay, you know, I'm with the Main Street program and I hear there's interest. You know, what do you think? What's your vision for the downtown and what's going on downtown? Do you think? Well, the downtown would be better if those dang business owners would just do X, Y, Z. This is not who brings what to the table. It's about how you are going to do it together. You each have the resources that you have, and just as the pastor mentioned before I came, like I said, you stole all my thunder, really. It's the symbiotic relationship. Each of you want what's best for the community, but it's about how you can open the lines of communication and share a vision for the community so that everyone can move in the same direction. Everybody wants the best thing for the community. It's how you can move that forward. And each of you have resources that are going to allow that vision to succeed. Capitalizing on existing events. So this is my favorite slide because I get to tell a story about when I worked in Scottville. Anybody know where Scottville is? Okay. Scottville is 4 miles outside of Ludington. Well, first let me back up. So capitalizing on existing events. This is not about when we come into communities, we want you to celebrate what's unique to you. Remember, this is a historic preservation function at its root. So it's unique to you, right? So we want you to celebrate what's unique to you. And when I come into communities, I say, okay, you know, so what's great? What is your vision? What do you want to be? When people talk about your community, what do you want them? What's to pop in your head? You know, we want to be an arts community. I hear it everywhere I go. And some communities are arts communities. But I work a lot in rural Michigan, and some aren't arts communities. So I used to be the Main Street manager in Scottville, Michigan. It is a town of 1,200. There are 2 stoplights. One of them is blinking. It is the home of the Scottville Clown Band. The Scottville Clown Band is 200 men who dress in drag, And it's not even clowns. I don't know where they got the name, right? Dress and drag and play instruments. It's like marching band for grown-ups with a lot of beer. A lot of beer and dresses. It's the craziest thing. Google Scottsville Clown Band when you get home. It's hilarious. Town of 1,200, that's what they got. And if you're 1,200 people and 2 stoplights and that's what you got, that's what you got, right? So I came to them as their Main Street manager. We're starting their Main Street program. Like, hey guys, you know, so what are we excited about? Because I just moved to Scottsville. I'm there to help them start their program. This is theirs, right? What are we excited about? Well, Ludington, you know, there's such a great arts community. We want to be an arts community. There's one artist in Scottsville. His name's Craig Convassor. He's a wonderful man. Not quite big enough to build a market niche off of, I wouldn't say. Nice, he's a nice guy, not quite big enough for a whole brand, I would say. So after a year of failed arts events, because really, there's not a lot of art in Scottsville, 80% of their industry in Mason County is agriculture. Somehow, someone had the idea to do a barn tour, and I latched onto that with both hands. They did a barn tour. They have these really cool century farms and round barns and all these really cool, all over Mason County. The tour ended in downtown Scottsville in a vacant building where we put a traveling exhibit of barns in this vacant building. We put hay bales on the floor, people could sit, serve some wine, boom, we got a barn tour. We had hundreds of people come from as far away as Chicago to come look at barns. People will pay good money to get their hands dirty for the afternoon, apparently. It was the best event we ever did because we didn't manufacture some, I won't say it, bull, it's bull. It is bull, kind of. We didn't manufacture something. We served something to the community that was real, that they could be proud of, because that was them. They were farmers. Quality. This is about not doing a ton of projects halfway, but doing a couple projects really, really well. So I used to be the Main Street manager in Old Town Lansing. It is an arts district on the north side of Lansing, and when I got there, they did 111 events. I know, right? I didn't sleep much those few years. 111 events. The first thing I did was sit down with the board and say, okay, what are we cutting? Because if those events aren't, one, bringing in a target demographic, the demographic that meets what the businesses need. So who's shopping at the downtown businesses? That's not the same people that are coming into these events. Why are we doing this? And if those events aren't communicating a key message about what our brand is, who we are as a community, and we're not making some money, then why are we doing it? So it's about quality projects. Change. Now, in the 3 Main Street communities that I've worked in, 2 I started. So they came into the Main Street program, they needed to hire their first Main Street manager, and they got me. Whoops, right? Running a Main Street program is not that hard. You know, I can cold call developers all day long. They tell me no. I used to do telemarketing in college. Tell me no. That's another day, right? Fundraising, telemarketing. Everything you need to know you learn from telemarketing, right? That didn't bother me at all. Writing grants, if you can write a book report, you can write a grant. It's not that hard. The hardest part about starting a Main Street program is convincing the community that they deserve more than what they have. And that is the God-honest truth. Convincing the community to see beyond what they've had every day, every year for years, and believing that they deserve more. Before I ever worked for the state, being a Main Street manager in rural communities, I would go in and I would try and help them see what do you want in your downtown? And I would hear, well, that may happen down in Lansing, but that doesn't happen here. I was a suit from Lansing long before I ever started working for the state of Michigan. So that's really the one thing I want you to take away is know that. You have to see beyond what you have and believe that. And if you can do that, you'll have a Main Street program. Or you'll have change in your community. This is action-oriented. Now, we are big fans of plans. It's always important to have a plan. And when you join the Main Street program in the select level, we'll even pay for your plan. But what we want to see is that plan take action. That plan, when you receive the market study that identifies what businesses should be in your downtown, how are you then using that to recruit the appropriate businesses? So making the plan and then taking it into action. So when I was working in Scottville, sorry, I'm a big story person when I tell these things because that's the only way I can relate it in my head. We had a plan, and our master plan had all these beautiful benches and flower pots and hanging baskets, and our program had like $10 to its name. So the plan may say all day long how great our downtown looks, but you know, it's a plan. Plan doesn't have action attached to it. And so what we did was we went down to Sherwin-Williams, we got a bunch of mismatched paint, we put it in a bucket, we stirred it up, and we painted the benches that we had. Because you know what, the plan says we have this, but we have this. So what do we got in between? And it's about taking action in what you have. So the organizational structure of a Main Street program, when we come into communities, a lot of times, you know, we see all kinds, let me tell you. But typically what we see is the factions of resources. So like different silos of resources, and they're all kind of working in their, very busy, working in their own direction. So typically we see a DDA or an economic development corporation or a principal shopping district or something to that effect that is charged with some sort of community development. And they're always, you know, working the best they can in what they have. And typically they have some sort of, some tax base from a special assessment district or a TIFA or something. A lot of acronyms, I know, I apologize. But they have some menial revenue coming in, but they don't really have a lot of participation from the greater community because there's a board of directors that's here, spend this money, do it the best way you can per the master plan or what have you. So that's that silo. And then you have the other silo of the business community, and they usually get together a couple times a month and they talk about what sort of event they could do that doesn't cost any money because they don't have any money, that would possibly drum up some business that day or that week or something like that. And then over here you have the coffee clutchers that know everything about everything and would tell you all about it, and they would never lift a finger to actually help anything, but they just talk. Every community has them. So what Main Street does is takes all those silos of resources and put them into one messy pot and gets everybody seeing the same vision, like I said earlier, and gets them rowing in the same direction. So how do we get all the resources in the community, the chamber, the city, Rotary, you know, Wayne Ripple Effect, the school district, all the different resources, and say this is what we have and this is what we see for the future, and get everybody on the same page and then get them rowing together so that you can accomplish something bigger than any one of those groups could accomplish. A traditional board of directors, you know, it's a governing board. It's very staff-driven. We want to shift that and put the power and the energy in the volunteers' hands. So the board can say, this is the vision we have, and this is the goal we have for the year, and committee's here. Let's go. And sometimes it's a little messy, and sometimes it's a little odd, the ideas that come out of that, but odd's good because odd's what makes you unique. You know, people, you know who knows best of what the community needs? You. You live here. You invested your lives here. You know. A program manager, because this program is completely volunteer driven, I kind of use the analogy of, so you have your little pot of money, and then you have the volunteers, and the volunteers have committed, you know, their time, and so that's created this amount of return, you know. So you've been able to make that small amount of money actually perform at a higher level because you've got some volunteers behind it. Well, a Main Street manager makes managing those volunteers a full-time job, and I tell you, if that person only spends 40 hours a week doing it, he or she's doing it wrong, because I promise, you're working more than that. So what they do is take their time to organize the people so that instead of this pot of money and this amount of people having this return, you organize the volunteers so that you can have this return. But ultimately, it's your program, because the committees, like I said, they take the goals and they run with it. They really see the projects through. So of these elusive committees that I keep talking about, there's 4 committees. And first is the design committee. Is this bad if I do this? I think I need to do this for a second. So the first is the design committee, and the design committee is, this is actually my bench painting. You know my bench painting analogy? That's the postal worker painting Gwen. She ran the post office. She's painting the bench. So the design committee focuses on anything on the outside of the building. So historic preservation, streetscape, infrastructure, that's their responsibility. They're doing projects that impact the exterior of the building. And then this is downtown Boyne. This is, Boyne did a streetscape project on their River Street. Boyne City is one of our Main Street communities. All these are Main Street communities. I use a lot of examples. And this is the streetscape, ribbon cutting they did for the streetscape project. Promotions committee. The promotions committee is responsible for marketing, branding, tourism, retail events. So not just big special events, but how do we make those cash registers sing, you know? How do we create events that reinforce a key message? This is Niles. Niles does, they dump a bunch of sand in the middle of their downtown and do sand, it's Arts in Motion, I think the event's called, and they have all sorts of sand sculptures and stuff. It's really cool. And then Boyne Thunder. If all of us could have a lake in our downtown, right? The organization committee, that's my specialty. So all these other committees, they're eating up resources. You know, they're spending money, they're using volunteers. The organization committee is the motor that makes the rest of it go. And they're the ones that are recruiting volunteers, recognizing volunteers, raising funds so the program can go. But more importantly, advocacy and communication. Because no matter how many good things your Main Street program or your Wayne Ripple Effect is doing, unless you're telling people about it, nobody knows. And so nobody will give you a dime or a minute of their time until you tell your story effectively. And so that's what the organization committee is for. People always say that's the dry committee, but I'm like, that's where it happens, man. And then the Economic Restructuring Committee, they're charged with business recruitment retention. You know, working with your chamber, working with your Economic Development Corporation, what have you, to really start recruiting, not only recruiting businesses, but making sure the businesses that you have are healthy, because the best business recruitment is business retention. So what is the Michigan Main Street Center? That is a very good question. Unfortunately, it's not a grant program. I don't come here with a giant check like Publishers Clearinghouse. I don't get balloons in my car and nobody like screams and jumps up and down when they see me. This is about technical assistance. So in the course of Wayne Ripple Effects and the City of Wayne's partnership with the Michigan Main Street Center, we provide a relatively unlimited amount of technical assistance to the tune of $200,000 in third-party contracts. That doesn't include the time that the Michigan Main Street Center staff makes available to the community. So we have like, I don't know, there's a sheet back there that lists all sorts of services that we provide the communities. I would say a fraction of them are the services that we pay a third-party contractor for. We have a full-time staff of 4 individuals who specialize in each of those 4 areas of Main Street. So myself, I'm a former Main Street manager. We have a young woman who comes from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation that does all the business recruitment, specializes in business recruitment retention. We have a woman from the State Historic Preservation Office that focuses on design. And then a graphic design and marketing professional who focuses on promotion. So each of us have a very diverse background, but we provide our time, unlimited amount of time, to the communities that we work with. Not a grant program. Whoever needs to leave now can leave. Kidding. So some of the services that we provide, and I brought all the jazzy, the sexy ones that people always like to hear about. The retail and market analysis, or retail and residential market analysis. So for those of you who don't speak economic development lingo, this is basically a leakage assessment of what your community could support as far as businesses go in your downtown. So this isn't necessarily about just recruiting new businesses. This is for your existing businesses to expand their product lines, or maybe develop staff, or change marketing hours, or things, or market to a different demographic based on the information they get from this market study. It's really very, very helpful tool. Well, we take it a step further because we hate plans that don't have action attached to it. So then we put a plan with it that says, okay, now that you have this market study, based on the information that it just said, how do we then get that out into the community? How do we get that not only in the existing business's hand, but how do we assess the appropriate businesses within the surrounding region that should or could, based on our market study, open up a location in Wayne? And how do we look at the business mix in our downtown to know which properties we should show them so that they really can create some synergy among other businesses? So it's a really neat tool. Commercial real estate development boot camp. I went through this last year and it was pretty cool. So if you don't come into the Main Street program, you guys should go sign up for this because it's at CEDM. It's really neat. So it's a week long. You come in, you take a white elephant building. So a white elephant building is the building that is just, you don't know what you're ever going to do with it. You come in, you bring the property owner, you bring your economic development professionals in your community, your economic restructuring committee, and they lock you up in a room for a week. And you have to put together a development pro forma, so a budget to develop the property. You have to put together a maintenance pro forma. They educate you on different funding mechanisms from the state and federal governments for how to approach local bankers, things like that. You have to put together all the numbers and actually make it work out. And then at the end of the week, you pitch the project to a panel of investors. And this isn't like role-playing stuff. This is legit people who are like, yes, no, yes, maybe, call me. And projects, deals happen right there. It was the coolest thing. Made me wish I was still a Main Street manager so I could make one happen, but such is life, right? Design services, people really enjoy this one. Though the woman from the State Historic Preservation Office works with 15 property owners in each of the Main Street communities that we work with to meet with the property owner, find out what your budget is, what your vision is for your building, and then put together a schematic drawing similar to that. It includes budget, color samples, maintenance schedule, product samples, the whole 9 yards. The cool thing is that those design services are a shoo-in for facade grants at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. From me to you right there, folks. So the Michigan Main Street program, so right now you guys are in the associate level. And this is the associate level right here. It's a 1-year commitment. You can stay in the associate level as long as you like. But this is really a self-selection process. We only want to work with the communities that are ready to work. And so this is kind of where the tire kickers come. To find out about Main Street, to educate themselves and learn how to better educate their community and prepare themselves to be successful in the select level. And that's where I know it's Wayne Ripple Effect's intent to move on to the select level. Excuse me. The select level is a 5-year commitment. That's when it starts to get real, okay? It's a 5-year commitment, and that's where the $200,000 in technical assistance comes. That's where I come to your community like once a week and bug you all the time. That commitment there is to hire a full-time Main Street manager, because we expect that the volunteer work is worthy of someone to manage it. And then after your 5 years, we had a lot of communities that were graduating from the program and they wanted to stay in. And so we created a master level. And I call it kind of the maintenance level, where the communities like Howell and Marshall and Old Town Lansing, they had their programs up and running, but they wanted to still have that association with us. And so they just call us whenever they need like a board training or something to just kind of assist where we can. We currently work with 40 communities across the state. Yes, that is Calumet. Yes, I drive to Calumet when they need me. Put a lot of miles on that car. So those are the 40 communities. You are currently one of the 23 in our associate level. And in order for you to move on to the select level, the big commitment would be a full-time Main Street manager. There's reporting requirements. You would have to commit to all 5 years. You know, you have to commit to being able to keep that manager for the next 5 years, or be able to have a manager in some capacity for the next 5 years. That's really where the commitment lies. And so that's why we have this associate level, so that you can get all your ducks in order to be able to be successful when you move forward. The benefits of Main Street, I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. That talent retention, you know, young people about retaining talent, what they're looking for, the answer is not Chicago. There's not just a flat answer of Chicago. You know, they're looking for engagement, they're looking for a lot of things that Wayne has to offer. Focused tax base, I talked about that earlier. Historic preservation, economic development, tourism, community pride. Big one. Sustainability and exponential return. The more people you have, when I was the manager in Old Town Lansing, we had a volunteer base of 1,300 people. Imagine what 1,300 people can do. Imagine what this room could do. It has an exponential return. Statistics, I've worked with enough bankers and bureaucrats to know that this is the slide that matters. So Statistics, total number of volunteer hours, 4.4 million, the value of those volunteer hours. So that's the point. You know, you guys think you're just given an hour, oh, I'm gonna go pour beer, or oh, I'm gonna go help them do this or do that. There's value to that, and that's the value that you're bringing to your community when you do that. Net new businesses, 226, 146 that have expanded. That's the real good one. An 8% decrease in vacancy rate. That number does not do this program justice, because those numbers are all of our programs. So the communities that have been in 15 years all the way down to the communities that have been in 6 months. Well, the communities that have been in 6 months, you know, they probably haven't had any change in vacancy rate. The communities that have been in 15 years, I was the Main Street manager in Old Town Lansing, like I said. When they started their Main Street program, they had a 90% vacancy rate. Think about that, 90%. And the businesses that were there were adult bookstores and bars, not even the ones you want. When I left, they had a 9% vacancy rate. So that number does not do the program justice. 1,100 net new jobs. Those aren't seasonal, part-time. Those are net, because we count what they lose too. 554 facade rehabs, 30 million in building rehabs, 69 million in private investment. And those are for the 15 communities that are at our select and master level. So it's not a lot of communities contributing to that number. I get asked all the time, is this a rural program or is this an urban program? Well, you've heard all my crazy stories. And you know I worked in Iron Mountain, way up there, the bridge is halfway. And you know I worked in Old Town Lansing. And the one thing that both of those communities had in common is they had no money and a whole lot of people. So this is a program about doing. Don't matter what you got. So moving forward, you know, there's some key questions. And the first question is, does your downtown meet our traditional, what we consider a traditional district? And what we look for is zero lot line, which means the building is right up flush to the sidewalk, and that all the buildings that share a common wall, and that the majority of the buildings are 50 years or older. Because remember, this is about historic preservation, not just private investment, okay? So that's what we look for, and I had the opportunity to tour the downtown today. You know, you have some developments, some newer developments here and there, but majority of your downtown, particularly along Michigan Ave there on the one side, is still a lot of great historic building stock. Do you have the human and financial resources? You have the human resources. That has been apparent to me today. But in order for Wayne Ripple Effect to move forward, they need to know that they have the financial commitment, both public and private, to move forward to be able to sustain this program if they were to do it. Broad-based community support. I'm in a church, I'm on the pulpit, there's a ton of people out there, looking good so far. Long-term commitment, is historic preservation valued? We want to know that this isn't a community that's just out to get the investment, but also know that they want to make the right investment, thoughtful investment. So that's where we turn to all of you. In order for Wayne Ripple Effect to move forward, they want to be able to show that they have that support in all manners. And so I know they're going to be taking on, they currently do a bunch of projects in the community that we heard earlier, but they're going to be taking on a bear of an application to move into the select level. And I've been a volunteer, I've done that application. And the easiest way to do it is with lots of help. And so I tell you. And so if you can help volunteer for projects, volunteer for to help on the steering committee to lead this Main Street program forward. There's also, they're asking folks to make pledges to get a Jazzy t-shirt. Model the t-shirt for us, Vanna, someone? T-shirts. Folks that make pledges will get a Ripple Effect t-shirt. Or just educate your neighbors that they're going to, over the next year, in order to make this application, they're going to have to do a lot of education to make sure that everyone in the community is in support of this, because they don't want to do this alone. And so if you can't make a pledge, if you know you don't want to volunteer, which I'm judging a little bit, then at least tell your neighbor that you came to this presentation and that you heard what Wayne Ripple Effect is doing, and that there's good things on the horizon, and that alone is help too.